Hey everybody, welcome to July 14th MakerDAO community call. My name is David Utrobin. I do community development here at the Maker Foundation, and I have the good pleasure of hosting these calls every Tuesday. So we've been doing these calls for quite a long time, and they're at an interesting point in the week. They're Tuesday midday. Some people can catch them for lunch. Depends on where you live in the world. But most of the ingestion of this call happens through the recording, and just through people subscribing to the agenda that we put together for the call. But this week, not but, and this week, we're just going to go through kind of the usual agenda. Sometimes we have really interesting guests on the call, but this week we're just going to focus on the MakerDAO ecosystem, what's happening in governance, what's happening in the community, and just a general update for this week. So if you're in the call, you could check out the agenda on the link I just posted, or the little green button, which is the link to the agenda as well. If you are watching the recording on YouTube, you could go into the description, and the agenda is posted there, so definitely check that out. And without further ado, I guess I'm going to share my screen as I usually do and walk through what's going on. So give me just a second while I get my screen share going. All right, sweet. Hopefully that is big enough font for you all. Let me just resize my own screens here for a sec. All right, yeah. So let's get into it. Some TLDR, some TLDRs, plural. We're in week 2 of the July governance cycle. So really quickly, there's a monthly governance cycle that was part of the MIPS framework for the Maker protocol. And actually, this month there is a proposal for formally creating a weekly governance cycle to handle some of the more urgent things that governance needs to handle, pretty much on an as-needed basis. Yeah, we're in the monthly governance cycle of July now. It started last week. We're currently in week 2. As you're going to see from the other TLDR, a bunch of inclusion polls were submitted onto governance this week. And so this means that all of these, I think it's 6 or 7 different proposals, were submitted during the formal submission period of week 1. And right now, MKR voters are voting whether they should include all of these formal submissions as part of the bundled up MIPS and sub-proposals that are going to be accepted during this month's governance cycle. But yeah, right now we're in the inclusion stage, so I just wanted to quickly show this little chart as we're all getting used to the MIPS cycle. Seeing that chart definitely helps me, and I'm sure it helps many others if you're a visual person. So 7 inclusion polls went up yesterday on Monday, July 13th, and these are going to determine which of those MIPS are going to be included in the governance poll next Monday, which would bundle all of the winning inclusion poll MIP changes together. Another TLDR, DAI supply reached an all-time high of around 196 million. I'm not sure if we broke 200 million because honestly I haven't been watching that number super closely, but I did see this morning that we're right on the cusp, so that's pretty exciting. And I know a lot of it is definitely fueled by the recent liquidity mining craze and just a ton of interesting stuff happening on the DAI demand side of things. And also the fact that we've added a number of collateral types over the last months. So it's pretty fun. Yeah, Christopher Mooney says, I don't think we broke 200 mil yet, but we're close. We're close. And yeah, Charles is right. It's 7, not 6. I think I thought 6 because of the mana proposal, but I realized that that's actually also an inclusion poll. So yeah, all 7. And we're going to get into the live votes right now. So I'm going to list them through for all of you. So here are some of the live votes. There's currently no executive vote, so don't worry about that until at least Friday. And actually, if somebody in the call can can clarify when the next expected executive vote is, that would be cool. I don't think there's one this coming Friday. I don't think there. Yeah, the only one that I know should be coming up is the week 4 executive vote. But then whichever executive vote happens on Friday would be a result of the base rate change, I guess. Like if it changes from 0 to something else, then we're gonna have an executive vote. But otherwise, I don't know anything on the horizon, except maybe also like a debt ceiling vote. But either way, yeah. If anybody can fill me in the chat, that would be helpful. So yeah, there's potentially one this week for the base rate. Yeah, that's what I thought. Cool. So here's some live votes. These are all governance polls. So there's a weekly base rate adjustment that's happening with a range of -4 to +4%. And currently 0% is winning with about 18,000 MKR staked on that option. And 0% won last week. And actually, I believe a recent executive changed the base rate from 25 basis points down to 0%. So yeah, MKR voters are serious about keeping that die peg, and they're serious about keeping the base rate at 0 for now, which is cool. There's also another really important governance poll that's not an inclusion poll. It's around the vault compensation plan. So as many in the community know, MakerMan, Monate Supply, Vault 228, and a number of others in the working group for creating this plan did it, and they presented it on I believe the, what is it, July 25th? Yeah, June 25th. Ha, see, I knew it was 25. But on the June 25th governance call a couple of weeks ago, they presented the plan. And so you could definitely check out the recording, which I linked here. And then you could read the plan independently in the forum thread that I also linked here. So this governance poll is basically asking MKR holders, should we go forward into phase 1 of this plan? So phase 0 kind of outlines so very sorry about that. Outlines let me just mute this so nobody bothers me. Cool. Yeah, so the vault compensation plan in phase 0, there's a lot of open-ended questions. For example, like which methodology to use and which numbers to use to actually determine compensation for various cases. But basically, it's a very thorough plan. Highly suggest you read through it if you're an MKR voter and vote on it. There's also an interesting Reddit thread, and there's several people discussing whether they're going to vote for or against it. But the most important thing is if you vote against it, please come into the forum thread and give us a little bit of context behind your decision. If there is something inherently wrong with the plan that could be changed, I know that the working group is super happy to work with MKR voters on that. And then likewise, if it's just because you don't believe people using early DeFi protocols should be compensated for something that was like kind of a known risk, then voice that opinion as well. There are no wrong opinions, but I think that being able to communicate and being able to publicly communicate the sentiment and some of the reasoning is super important for other MKR holders to base their decisions on. Yeah, so check that out. As for the inclusion polls, there's 7 of them. I'm going to go into kind of each. Yeah, you know what? Let's just wing it. So one is for the MIP 16 weekly governance cycle. This was a new MIP that was entered into the formal submissions for this month, and it proposes formally this idea of a weekly governance cycle. So during these first 3 months of the MIPS framework being adopted, we have adopted this policy of being flexible. So while most things happen on the monthly governance cycle, there are certain things that we make exceptions for, basically, and run it through a weekly cycle. So this MIP kind of formally introduces this idea of a weekly governance cycle, and I'm not 100% sure on all the details, but maybe we could dive into those in a few minutes. but let me get through all of these. So MIP 17 is also a new MIP that was entered into the formal submissions for this month's governance cycle. It is a MIP to it's called Weekly Actual Debt Ceiling and Actual Risk Premium Adjustments. So this MIP aims to replace the current methodology of adjusting the risk premiums, debt ceilings, and I believe, yeah, I mean, even the stability fee to a certain extent, because I believe, yeah, these well, I'll get into it for a second, but yeah, this mainly deals with the actual debt ceiling and actual risk premium adjustments. The proposal introduces a number of new terms. The proposal itself outlines the actual calculation methodology, so it's not too hard to wrap your head around if you just devote, a good 5-10 minutes to reading the MIP. And yeah, it also adds the idea of having a risk premium curve based on utilization, which I think is an interesting step. I guess I'm gonna read through this because I put it here because I thought it was important. So the adjustment process uses a parameter called the target debt ceiling and introduces a weekly cadence for making changes to the actual debt ceiling. I mean, I guess it would be good to define these terms for you guys. So when the calculation logic outputs an adjustment value of the actual debt ceiling for one or more collateral types, the changes are put up in a single bundled weekly cycle poll on the Monday of the weekly cycle. So it would be a weekly poll. And yeah, and actually all of these terms are defined in the MIP, which I linked below. Actually, this is just a link to the vote, which you can get to the MIP through there as well. But if you'd like a little bit lower, I linked all of the associated forum threads with the formal submissions of this month. So yeah, it would increase debt ceilings as a percent. This is also like kind of a key difference to if this passes compared to life as we know it. It would increase debt ceilings as a percentage rather than a predefined. As a percentage, part of a predefined calculation process rather than an arbitrary number selected by the risk team or the community. Because since the beginning of MCD and even since SCD, anytime there would be a debt ceiling adjustment, it was kind of approached. Yeah, and it doesn't really matter, right? 10 million seems like an appropriate risk-adjusted buffer, right? You don't want to do too much. You don't want to do too little. But this kind of adds a layer of transparent process and predictability to the whole thing. So I really like it. I definitely need to dig in a little bit more to further wrap my head around it. But highly recommend MKR voters go and read through that proposal. Another inclusion poll is around MIP 18, yet another new MIP submitted in the formal submissions. It is called meta parameter adjustments. So meta parameters are parameters that don't correspond directly to parameters within the Maker protocol smart contracts. So currently the two meta parameters that we deal with in the Maker protocol are the DSR spread and the base rate. And this is an idea that was put forth and actually passed through governance. It was put forth by Sam McPherson, I believe his name is, also known as Hexanaut, one of our very active community members. And I believe that we're moving to bigger and better things slowly but surely because, yeah, we are formally introducing this idea of meta parameter adjustments. And also, as part of this MIP 18, we're also going to be, the MIP proposes that we would remove the DSR spread. So it removes it as a meta parameter in order to reduce the weekly governance cycle complexity of Maker governance. Currently, we vote on the DSR spread bi-weekly, and this would essentially kind of remove the idea of voting for a DSR spread as a meta parameter and just, I guess, vote on DSR. Although I'm not 100% sure. If somebody could hop on the mic and clarify that, that would be cool. So Charles or Chris or anybody on here, if you know, definitely jump on because I have to read that MIP a little bit more closely. How do you hop on like this? for those of you that don't know, I sent a invitation for him to hop on. There's our man. What's up, Charles? Do you hear me?
Am I there?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Okay.
Sweet.
I can't see myself, so.
I also can't see you, but I could hear you.
All right. Yeah. So I just wanted to add one note, and so with the sub proposal to remove the DSR spread, basically what that means is that if the DSR spread is removed, this means that the DAI savings rate will then follow the base rate going forward. That's the main thing that you want to keep in mind and take from that proposal if the DSR spread does indeed get removed.
That's exactly what I wanted to get clarity on. Perfect. Awesome.
I did also want to know one thing about MIP 17.
Sure.
And that was, so each week the MIP editor, so that's myself or potentially one of the governance facilitators, Rich or Alone for Wisdom, will use that formula that's in the proposal itself to calculate if the debt ceiling or risk premium needs to change. If it is calculated and it does need an adjustment, a poll will go out on the Monday. And if that poll passes, a Friday exec would be created to effectively adjust either or.
So this happens once per month, or this is like on a weekly cadence?
Yeah, so
I guess it's weekly, right?
Yeah, weekly. So MIP 16, MIP 17, and 18 are all related to the weekly cycle.
Got it.
So, and typically with the formalization of the weekly cycle, for the past months, we've seen that the weekly cycle is pretty much dedicated to monetary policy things. So really kind of keeping up that cadence with the formalization of the weekly cycle. It will also be used for things potentially like Oracle whitelisting, because that doesn't require too much kind of discussion, and it can be done a lot quicker. So for little things like that, the weekly cycle is perfect. If you do want to add something in particular to the weekly cycle, you can pretty much make a proposal to say that these things should be included. And that also relates closely to the meta parameter adjustments, which is just any parameter adjustment that doesn't relate directly to the smart contracts.
Thank you. That's really, really helpful context. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. So yeah, these are all related through MIP 18 to the weekly cycle. And the weekly cycle we use mostly for monetary policy. Yeah, that's definitely true.
To answer Brian's question, yeah, it does mean that there's going to be no spread at all for the DSR, and the DSR will resolve back to the base rate value. But yeah, definitely check it out and provide feedback if you have the time.
So if there's going to be kind of a default no spread, if somebody were to introduce the idea of a spread between a base rate and the DSR, they would have to resubmit through the MIPS process and try to get it passed by the community.
Yeah, so that proposal also allows you to potentially add the DSR spread back. We simply use the sub-proposal process along with this to remove it. I mean, if it doesn't pass, it will stay the way it is. If you want to make some sort of change in the future, even to the formula of calculating the actual debt ceiling and actual risk premium, you can propose a sub-proposal to change the formula to not be exponential, for example. I know that's been a big topic in the forums. So if you don't like the way it is, or you think it could be optimized, you make a proposal to change it, and the community would decide if they like it or not. Got it.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you want, you could still hang out, so I don't have to re-invite you back on the mic, because I'm sure there's going to be some additional questions I might have about some of these.
Yeah, I just don't really know how to mute myself.
I got you. I can mute you. There. All right. So let's walk through here, and Charles, if you want to get unmuted, I don't know if you can unmute yourself, but if you want me to unmute you, just type it in the chat. I can do it really, really easily. All right, cool. So yeah, moving forward to MIP 19. So inclusion poll MIP 19 is for the liquidation system 1.1 upgrade. Mariano Conti spoke a little bit about it in last week's governance call, and also the forum thread that I linked a little bit below here gets into the details, but the gist of it is that it solves a lot of the issues, particularly the issue of requiring double DAI liquidity for a lot of the auctions. So there's a number of issues this fixes, and so definitely check that out if you want the details. And I guess really quickly in the chat there was a quick discussion whether or not the lack of a DSR spread means that there's going to be no maker burn, and I believe that there is still going to be maker burn if the system surplus achieves that 500k maximum, and then every 10k above it is going to be burned. So any fees that are collected from, for example, liquidation penalties, I guess, and any fees that are not forwarded to DAI and DSR are contributing to system surplus, which ultimately contributes to maker burn. Cool. So moving forward, inclusion poll MIP 4 component 2 subproposal 5. It removes dependencies for MIP 12. I could speak a little. Actually, I mean, I don't know. Charles, do you want to paint some context around the dependencies for MIP 12 thing? If you're around, I don't want to put you on the spot. Yeah, cool. Here you go. Mic should be working now.
Hello. Okay. So the MIP 12 amendment is really just to remove the current dependencies on the MIP 6 application, domain greenlight, and the domain community greenlight polls. Because in the past we had some inconsistencies saying that in order for the domain teams to propose a collateral type to get onboarded to make a protocol, it has to successfully go through the community poll and pass, which is not true. They're non-binding polls. They're pretty much just a sentiment analysis or signaling method for indicating whether the community wants to add an asset, and then the domain teams take that with into consideration when they're looking at which collateral types they want to work on. So we removed the need for having this MIP 9 community greenlight poll to have passed, which was already said like from the beginning. It just happened to be this inconsistency that was kind of worded in a poor manner, and I'll take the blame for that. But the amendments also add 2 new components that are related to the weekly cycle, more particularly MIP 17, so the DC and risk premium adjustment. And the first component really enables the use of MIP 12 subproposals. And these proposals are used to adjust risk parameters, add collateral types, and so on. So the component allows you to adjust the target debt ceiling and the target risk premium with that proposal as well. So the domain teams can do that. And the second one just simply creates a list that the MIP 17 enabled collateral types and risk parameters are listed. So for all the assets that are on the Maker protocol now, the original ones, so for example, USDC A would be on the list, and that means that the domain teams can adjust those risk parameters of the collateral types with the proposal. And it will always have the current active list of all the collateral types that can be adjusted through MIP 17. I do want to note that it is only at this point, which could be changed, but it's dedicated to the assets that are the original collateral type that's onboarded to the protocol. So USDC A, ETH A, and the USDC B, so just the B indicator, would not be allowed to be changed through this process.
So to rephrase, any vault with like a special reasoning, like USDC B, wouldn't go through that weekly recalculation of a debt ceiling and a risk premium. Exactly. Just because the debt ceiling and the risk premium were set under a different context and for different purpose in the A vaults. Cool.
Got it.
Nice. And so MIP 17 is going to have a list of all of those vaults that are going to go through a weekly recalculation that is going to end up in a a readjustment vote, right?
Yeah, exactly. So all the collateral types that can be altered through that process will be listed on that
Got it.
source of
Got it.
truth.
Got it. And so again, MIP 12. Just one thing that sometimes I struggle with personally is remembering the titles of various MIPs. So sometimes I gotta like look it up.
Yeah, so this one is the collateral and risk parameter adjustment.
Yeah.
It's the last MIP that's within the collateral onboarding set, and it's really just dedicated for including the domain work for a proposed collateral type. So for
Got it.
every collateral type that's going to be proposed to be added to the Maker protocol, the domain teams will include their work and their assessments and their risk evaluations for that asset. It will go into the governance cycle, and then at the end of the month, if it gets there, it will be voted in. And if it is voted in, it will be officially allowed to be onboarded to the Maker protocol as a collateral type to take vaults out with.
Got it. Cool. So as an example, here's our last inclusion poll that is up for a live vote right now. So it is MIP 12, component 2, subproposal 3, domain work requirements for the onboarding of Mana. So Mana received domain work reports from all three teams, the Oracle team, the Risk team, and the Smart Contracts team. And having all three of those is a requirement, is like a hard requirement for creating the Mana Vault, or is it not? Or is there precedent to like maybe not have a smart? Yeah, like, do you understand my question? Sorry, I'm like waffling
I think
here.
so, yeah. So
Yeah.
after the update for the current MIP 12 that we're making, the amendment one that we just went over,
Yeah.
all collateral types that will be added to the Maker protocol should go through the monthly cycle. And in order for it to go through the monthly cycle, the smart contracts, oracles, and risk teams all have to provide their work assessments of the specific collateral type at hand. And it includes the work that they'll be doing for it to get it added. So that is a requirement. As of now, while MIP 12 is still kind of under construction, hopefully it will be finalized by end of month so that we can use the monthly cycle. But we'll also be seeing the lend collateral type go through the weekly cycle because of the inconsistency I mentioned before, that you have to pass the community greenlight pool, which is not true. And lend didn't pass, so we had to make that exception and put it through the weekly cycle. So we'll see it get added or proposed to be added to the protocol at some point this month.
Nice. Cool. Thank you for the added context. Yeah, so yeah, this last inclusion poll, which is the domain work requirements for the onboarding of Mana. So this proposal is to create a Mana A vault type by the end of this governance cycle, if it goes through. So the proposal contains all the domain teamwork to qualify this collateral, and the proposed risk parameters can be found in the risk team's assessment and recommendation, which can be found here. So if you're curious, all those links are there in the agenda again, so I won't spend too much time meditating on them here. And yeah, so collateral onboarding, Mana is going through this month's governance cycle, and as Charles just mentioned, Lend is going to go through a weekly cycle due to that MIP 12 requirement that needed to be fixed. So also, the next community greenlight polls are going to be going live next week on week 3 of the July governance cycle, and they're going to contain this list of collateral types. And as Charles also mentioned earlier, greenlight polls are basically like sentiment analysis of MKR holders. So in voting on these various greenlight polls, you're giving a signal to the various domain teams about what kind of priority they should put on these various choices. All right, so that's about it for the live votes and a bit of a MIPS update. Definitely some context around some of the MIPS and subproposals that are part of this month's governance cycle. We're going to continue here. We're almost to the end of the governance section of this agenda. So there's a few recurring threads that are pretty useful for MKR voters who vote weekly. There's governance at a glance. I mention it every week. We'll never stop. But Long for Wisdom does a great job of putting together all of the active discussions and signal request threads going on at any given time. I think he updates it once a week. So yeah, definitely check it out. There's also a list of active and inactive governance initiatives here. Also worth picking up. One in particular that I think should be picked up by somebody in the community is the DeFi Consortium on Emergency Shutdown. I believe this one's stalled out, but I would love to see this get resurrected again. But that's just my personal wants. There's also Collateral Status Index. So any collateral that you are interested in, you could find the status of it in this thread. Long for Wisdom does a great job keeping it updated and cross-linking pretty much everything. You could see the status here. So you could see what's been greenlit, what's been deferred or rejected by the community, and then links to everybody, every single collateral's initial collateral onboarding application. And also, yeah, links to domain work and stuff. So each one of these has its own comment associated with it and links further to any additional stuff that's part of its collateral app or relevant to its collateral app. All right, cool. There's also going to be a summary of last Thursday's risk and governance call. The link is here. It's not posted yet, but it's going to be posted in maybe like 2 or 3 hours. So check that out. MIPS, yeah. So Charles posts a weekly MIP update on Mondays at I don't think it's a specified time, just Mondays, and it's really, really helpful. I use it definitely to catch myself up on MIPS and also to actually help find all the links for this stuff and not spend too much time doubling the work and doing it myself. But Charles does a great job doing this every week, so definitely recommend that you keep up to date with Charles's account on the Maker Forum. And I believe there's actually a tag, right, for the weekly MIPS update. Yeah, so if you go to this tag, you'll be able to see all the updates, including the most recent one. So if you can't find the most recent one, just click on that little tag and you'll see if it's posted or not. All right, cool. So yeah, we already talked about all the formal submissions for July, so I'm not gonna go over them again, these right here. But I linked all of the forum threads, so if you're curious to read all of these MIPS and sub proposals, yeah, definitely feel free to take advantage of the links found here and also in Charles's weekly MIPS update. And also there's this really useful slide image that I thought would be useful, but I think we're a little bit MIP'd out for today. So there's also a number of proposals that are still in the request for comment stage. There is the MIP14 protocol DAI transfer that's still being discussed, and we highly encourage people to come in and further elaborate on where they find issue or if there's gaps or holes in this MIP that can be fixed or improved before it actually goes through a governance cycle and gets approved. There's also MIP 15, which is the dark fix mechanism. This is basically a process outlined for submitting a technical bug fix without publicly releasing the fix. So since there's actually a delay on any code changes through governance, through the GSM, if there is a bug in the Maker protocol and we have to submit a fix for it, then having that fix on chain during that governance delay, which is currently at 12 hours, gives time for a would-be attacker to reverse engineer the bug and actually exploit it. So the dark fix mechanism provides some process around that to help prevent that kind of vulnerability. So it's really cool. Will Barnes did a number of presentations about it on previous governance calls. And I believe, yeah, if you click there, there should be links to the presentations and just an overall really great explanation of the mechanism. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff to unpack in there, so check it out. Lev Linev also submitted MIP20, which is called the Target Price Adjustment Module, which is named Vox in the actual code that is submitted with this MIP. So this is actually a MIP to introduce back into the Maker protocol the target rate feedback mechanism, the TRFM. It's been a subject of conversation for years, and it is a practical way, I guess, to introduce like this similar properties as like negative rates on DAI. But I personally am a little bit out of my depth with this MIP, so I gotta probably spend some more time reading it and wrapping my head around it. So definitely check that out and discuss. And then the one sub proposal that is up for request for comment is a sub proposal of MIP 13, which was recently passed. So you're talking about the target price adjustment module MIP. Yeah, I could definitely. Chris, if you want to come on and talk about it for a sec, I'll invite you on the screen here. Invite sent. Hey, Chris, what's up? Happy
Can you hear
Tuesday.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. I'm not stuck in a black box like Charles was.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I am the right person to try and fully describe it. I read the MIP and I've gone through the code, and I don't think I would say it's exactly the TRFM, but it attempts to adjust the par in the same way that we adjust, any other rate in the system. So you specify it as like an annual rate change, and it would, in theory, act as a negative rate on DAI. I haven't thought through all the implications of that yet. I don't know if many people have, but yeah, that's my best shot at giving a description of exactly what it does. But from a code perspective, it looks correct. So yeah, I'm sure that like Lev or someone will come on and try and explain it better at some point.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try to get
Brian.
Lev to come on.
David just pulled me in.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
I like that I could have like at least like 2 or 3 multiple people on. Like this is nice. I like this feature.
Yeah, I've gone over the code and the MIP as well. From like a user perspective, imagine that you go into the Oasis dashboard, and right now you can put in $150 worth of Ether and pull out 100 DAI. What the Vox does is it allows governance to change the value of the par, which is the value of DAI.
Mm-hmm.
So from a practical perspective, what that allows us to do is if we decrease the price of DAI, that allows us to issue more DAI with the same amount of collateral. So if you've got $150 worth of DAI of ETH in there, the par value of DAI is down to 0.95 or 95 cents. Now you can issue $105 worth of DAI or 105 DAI, which according to the par value is $100. So
right, and likewise, if there's like a supply crunch on DAI and DAI is trading high, for example, you'd be able to make people's debt cheaper. In essence, right? You can make by making the par value, and tell me if I'm right in the way that I'm saying it. So by making the par value of DAI instead of being 1, let's say be 95 cents, I guess. Never mind.
If you issue say 100 DAI, you still got to pay back 100 DAI, even if that par value changes.
Okay. Right.
Jay Tathman, it's not really any different than lowering the collateral ratio, as far as I can tell, from a practical perspective. So instead of DAI being 150% collateralized, to be 148% collateralized, and then that number would move around. And there are some implications with that, because obviously if we bump it down and then things come back and we bump it back up, and somebody's riding that line, we could end up liquidating them there. So there's some education that needs to go into making sure that people get wrecked on that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fascinating.
I'll add one caveat. It's mentioned in the MIP as a security consideration, but a lot of UIs or implementers on chain may have assumed the $1 value. They didn't assume a par value, and so that's like there's a lot of integrations that would have to be checked to make sure that they didn't just assume one, and that the par is taken into consideration, say when creating a vault or repaying it or whatnot. So
yeah, that's it seems like a really big thing.
So you imagine that DAI is trading at $1.02 on the market, but we're telling the system that it's 98 cents. Effectively, that eats the difference there, in theory, and that you'd be able to issue more DAI, dump that on the market, and then take the difference there, and then.
But for a person with a position from before the par was lowered to 98 cents per DAI, does that make their what does that do to their position practically?
You still need to pay back the same amount of DAI, but you can now issue more DAI against the same amount of collateral.
Okay, so it moves their liquidation price actually up, right? And their collateralization up, since it's counting whatever their 100 DAI debt. Still, they have to pay back 100 DAI, but it's worth $98, right?
To the system, it's worth $98. The market price may be different, so they may still have to pay $100 or $102 or whatever on the market. It's just kind of a little nudge in a certain direction that we can give it. It's not automated, but like just the way that it looks like we could add another component on the front of it that does automate it. But right now, it's just kind of like a hook that lets us put par changes into the weekly spells.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, that definitely helps me understand it a bit more. Yeah, I'm definitely curious to hang out in my backyard and read through all these MIPs a bit more deeply.
Yeah,
but
and
cool.
it works like
answers,
dripping too.
Okay.
So yeah, just there was a prod function there. You've got to click that, or hit that periodically, like the same way you drip, for the DSR or for an ILP. So
if anybody's curious about the way that dripping works and what Chris is talking about, it's actually a really, really interesting solution to updating everybody's balances in the Maker protocol, and there's a really great write-up on it. Where the heck was it? Maybe it was just in the rates module. Yeah, I think yeah, here's the write-up for how yeah, I think this was a couple of the questions: who calls drip, and then how it actually works in the code. So I'm gonna post that here if you're curious. I actually didn't know about that one, Charles. DaiDrip.tech. I gotta add that to Awesome MakerDAO. Actually, no, never mind. I think this is already there. That's Adrian made that one, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, cool. All right, right on. So thank you guys for coming on the mic. If you wanna stay hanging out, feel free. I'm gonna keep going though.
I'm gonna let you go. I got lunch.
All right, fair enough. Enjoy. All right, sweet. So yeah, the all right, cool. So lots of things moving with MIPS. So subproposal, last one for the subproposals that are in the request for comment stage. It's a declaration of intent proposal, and it's about forward guidance for vault owners. I believe it was submitted by Akiva Dubrovsky, and a little bit about the MIP is here. I haven't dug into it too deeply, and if Akiva's here and wants to talk about it, I know he comes on the community calls sometimes, definitely jump on, but I think I'm gonna leave a little bit of my context painting for next week on that one. All right, so let's move forward. There's some threads on the Maker forum that are pretty important and interesting. There's a signal request for the compensation plan, but you can kind of ignore that signal request and vote in the on-chain poll, again, that went up today. There's also a signal request thread for increasing the duration of the GSM, but it seems to be pretty contentious. There's not really a unanimous decision one way or another. So I think we're pretty much stalled there, and also not too much voter turnout, 22 votes compared to this other signal request that got 111 votes. So should there, yeah, so the other signal request thread that happened this week was submitted by Level of Nev. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Should MakerDAO signal that it prefers for comp rewards for DAI suppliers and borrowers to be disabled? So this vote runs until today. 69% of people voted that we should not signal for disabling comp rewards. Only 14% voted that we should, and the rest were abstaining. 111 total people participated in this one week long signal thread, which was interesting. Yeah, a number of really great threads for reading are also available. There's this new idea of peg stabilization modules that has been floating around for the last couple of weeks. It's a really, really novel idea. I think it's great. If you're interested in more details about it, there's actually a link to a presentation that Wouter Kampman, who's head of engineering at the Maker Foundation, did. He presented it on last week's Governance and Risk Call, and you could watch that presentation here if you're curious about the details. There's also a pre-MIP discussion around a new chief contract redesign, so check that out as well. And Long for Wisdom posted a liquidity mining response summary. So last week, governance went into a bit of a discovery session around liquidity mining and how it affects DAI. And so this is a summary of, yeah, pretty much our response to all of it and how it's been going. And I know we're in the last 8 minutes of the call. Bye to you guys who have to go, but I'm gonna quickly run through the last of it. So some highlights from the community. This is maybe my favorite part of the call, but some really cool Maker NFT badges are incoming. This really, really talented dude, Richard Rosa, put together some really, really interesting pieces of artwork to reward to Ethereum addresses for doing various actions on chain. For example, like voting, or even giving the hat to a winning spell. There's bidding on the various auction types. There's sending DAI. Yeah, there's a number of really cool ones. So pretty exciting to see that. And I really love the artwork. So I hope you do too. And hopefully we can all get some of these displayed in our Crypto Voxels home or Decentraland homes or something. But yeah. DAI stats received a small visual update as the protocol scales. There's been a number of new vaults, and DAI stats likewise is adapting to our growth. Duncan posted an update on his DAO Ops project. So Duncan actually produced a really, really great in-depth user research report for MKR voters. Check it out here. I think I'm gonna have him talk a bit about the report on one of these coming Tuesday calls, hopefully, if he's interested. So look out for that. The Governance Communications Working Group launched Maker Relay a few weeks ago, and also the @MKRGov Twitter account. And so currently our goal is to actually merge this community call agenda with the Maker Relay to hopefully make all of this info a little bit more digestible and have maybe a slightly better format. And yeah, we're looking for help. So if you are a communications person or are interested in helping tackle the challenge of communicating as a DAO, definitely join our working group. There are DAI grants available for freelance contributors, and yeah, reach out to me, David Utro, on MakerChat or the forum, or DM me on Twitter. My handle is pretty much the same everywhere. Again, it's David Utro. So yeah, reach out to me if you're interested. The source cred trial carries on. I believe we're in week 6, actually. I'm not sure if the distributions are posted, but a 1-month review of the project, of the experiment, should I say, has been posted. So this is really cool. It's basically an idea for, well, it's actually a protocol for distributing money to people who are doing work and contributing to stuff like governance actions. And it does it through a really, really cool tech that they built. So again, yeah, there's a ton of stuff in this thread, including links to like their presentations about how this stuff works. The Protect Privacy Virtual Hackathon ended, and we're currently in the midst of judging all of the submissions. Had to sneeze. And I believe next Tuesday we might have one or two of these submitters on. People are calling source cred governance farming now. I mean, that's interesting. I think that there, I think that the review showed that nobody was really trying to game it. But if you have, if you have, I guess, additional context, or you think there is a way people are gaming it, I'm curious to hear, for sure. So the 2 bounties that we had for the Protect Privacy Virtual Hackathon were privacy and payments, and then privacy and governance and voting. So if you're curious to look at some of the submissions before I like formally put them together and like invite somebody, you could check these out. These are on GitHub, and I think in the comments you could see all of the PRs for the submitters. So yeah, check that out if you feel inclined. There was one article I saw, Crypto Talk. It was an interview with Gregory DePrisco, who is the head of business development at the Maker Foundation. And the interview got into a bit about, yeah, where DAI is going, where the Maker protocol is going, and how it's augmenting traditional finance. A handful of notable threads. Yeah, there's a Reddit thread with a ton of interesting comments about people's opinions on the Black Thursday compensation plan, so definitely check that out and vote. Another notable thread was this thread on earning ETH and other popular ERC20 tokens like DAI and KNC just by playing Axie Infinity. And I put this here just because I think it's really cool to call out that gaming and blockchain is like a match made in heaven, and that I'm really, really interested in seeing the way that these kind of digital game economies emerge, since they're using things that have real value. I mean, yeah, gaming is an exciting thing to be watching over the next few years with regards to DAI and blockchain and Ethereum. So yeah, videos. Yeah, I posted this here for visibility, but the peg stabilization module motivation and mechanics were presented by Water Catman on last week's governance call. So check that out. And then from the foundation, just a couple of things. So LinkDrop partnered with Kathleen, one of our community leads in Japan, to give out 4,000 DAI to 200 people. As part of a bigger promotion around something. And then there is a PvP game called Treasure Hunt 3 that also is doing 2,500 DAI in various split into various rewards for their players. So check that out. And then a couple of things from the MakerDAO blog. Welcome to the Evolution, how DeFi is augmenting the global financial system. This is part of a series of intro to DeFi, intro to crypto blog posts that are super beginner friendly. So feel free to send them to your friends or to people who are just dipping their toes or their minds in the space. And then the last one, to conclude the call is this blog post from actually a couple weeks ago. But the Maker Foundation is offering a 25,000 DAI prize to the winners of the Reddit Ethereum scaling competition. So details can be read in that blog post. Yeah, right on. So it's right up at the top of the hour. This week was a bit of a hairy one. Lots of new content and MIPS to wrap your head around. And if you are interested in contributing in any way to this, yeah, hit me up. We would love to get you onboarded and help produce even better resources so that all of this stuff can be digestible for the general public and for MKR holders worldwide. With that being said, thank you guys for coming on the community call. If you have suggestions for guests, if you have suggestions for topics, I'm all ears, open to hearing them. Thank you for coming. And I am gonna wrap it up. Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Mr. Tapman. I wonder if that's how you pronounce your last name. I hope I didn't butcher it. All right. I am ending the broadcast. Thank you very much for coming, guys.